Hey guys, it's Cameron, my review for the second season of the hit Netflix original series Glow. And what this season is essentially about is basically after Glow has become this huge success, we basically are seeing everyone try to retain the success that it was, but as we start to see within the show, there's a lot of complications with some characters, and they start to have a lot of problems with the network executives as well, who are making things very complicated for them, and all the ladies start to wonder if this can actually remain their career, and if they really do have anything outside of this, and that's really all I'm going to say. So Glow Season 2 overall, I was very excited for this show. I mean, Season 1 kind of came out of nowhere for me. I did not expect it to be nearly as good as it was last season, but it really surprised me. I thought it was such a insightful, yet highly entertaining show that really was a beast of its own nature because, sure, it did have a lot of great comedy in there, but it also had a lot of really great character drama and a lot of really great things to say about why people wrestle and things like that. And I was very excited to see what Season 2 was really going to bring to the table. Season 1 ended off in a very interesting place, and I was interested in seeing how Season 2 was really going to go. And if you guys remember, Season 1 was the last show I reviewed before I did my top 5 summer shows video. Same this year with Season 2. I knew that I had to watch it because I figured it would qualify, and damn, did it not disappoint me. This season is fantastic. Season 2 is a much different season than I expected it to be, but still a season that I very much did enjoy a lot overall. But we're just getting into right now, starting off with the cast. And just like last season, the cast here, I think, honestly, is even better this time. Everyone really seems to understand their roles. Everyone really gives an incredible performance, and I really do think everyone stepped up their game. Alison Brie, of course, as Ruth, still does a fantastic job carrying the show. You can see, after the events of last season, there is a lot of baggage, on her, a lot of emotional baggage that she has to carry, a lot of things that she is very much still dealing with, but she's also trying to move on from it. She's trying to get more, you know, she's trying to assert herself more with this community. She's trying to find love, you know, she's just trying to do what she can to move on from these things, and you really do root for Ruth as a character in that way, and I think Brie really does an incredible job, especially in the back half of the season. I think she has some really incredible scenes for sure. I still really do love her on the show, and she still was fantastic. I really do love what she did this season. But the MVP of the show still remains to be Betty Gilpin as, of course, Debbie, who just dominates this entire season. What I really love about Debbie is that even though in Season 1 there was that conflict between her and Ruth, she has not let go of it. This is something that Ruth, as we know, wants to. Debbie is not having that, and she is a lot more, I think, unhinged this season, and she's a lot more, I think, abrasive when it comes to the way she presents herself. She is a producer this season, and there's a lot of conflict between these two, and I really love seeing where Debbie was coming from, but it never comes from a place that's cartoony or over the top. And what Gilpin is able to do so well, especially when she plays the character of Liberty Bell, is she's able to take these really cheesy lines and things like that that would come across as really dumb and make them sincere. And the way she's able to go from absolutely terrifying at points to absolutely likable, I think it's just really great the way she's able to do that. Not many actresses are able to do it that quickly, but Gilpin is just such a great job of going from someone that we absolutely hate because of the things that she's doing to someone that we can absolutely love and identify with. And I really do love how Gilpin plays this character. She still continues to impress me, and I still can't believe how great she is on this show. There are so many moments this season that really do stick out. Her and Alison Brie still work very well together. I really loved their scenes on the show, but like I said, as good as Brie is, Gilpin still continues to be one of the best things about the show, and for me, one of the main reasons you watch the show in general is for her performance overall. And then, of course, there is still Marc Maron as the character of Sam, who, out of everyone, I think Sam is the character who really has evolved the most this season, which we'll get into that, of course, when we get to the writing and things like that. But obviously, you know, with the revelation of Justine being his daughter, you can see that he is trying to turn over a new leaf. He still is just as cunning, and he still is, I think, just as, you know, abrasive towards a lot of these girls, but he starts to see them more as his family, and he starts to see them less as just, you know, objects and people, you know, and clients, and more as, you know, women, and more as people. And I really did love seeing that transformation in him. I think he does such a great job with some of the emotional material this season. He's still a lot of fun to watch, and him and Ruth's relationship is still fantastic, but I would argue that I thought his chemistry was pretty much just as strong with everyone this season, particularly scenes between him and Britt Barron. I thought they worked very well together. I thought really just, you know, in terms of, you know, Maron really, I think, stepped up his game here. He was fantastic in the first season. I honestly thought he was even better here. Now, as far as the rest of the cast goes, everyone really does step up their game. It's a bigger cast this season. We focus on a lot more of the supporting characters, and there's a lot of great performances here, particularly from Kia Stevens, who I think really stepped up her game this season. Keep in mind, Kia Stevens is not a professional actress. This is someone who was a wrestler. They hired her because, for that reason, because she is a very experienced wrestler, and the range that she has this season is nothing short of remarkable. I truly don't know how she wasn't an actress before, because she definitely has it in her. She has some of the best moments in this entire season. I really love what she did here. Kate Nash, I also thought was phenomenal as Rhonda. I really loved, Jackie Tohn, I thought was very good. Brittany Young. But even some of the smaller roles, like, say, Chris Noel, who plays Bash, I didn't think much of him last season, but this season, I love this character. He has an incredible arc that he goes through this season, and where he ends is not at all what I was expecting, but I really did love it. There's a lot of great characters like that this season, a lot of people we can talk about, but the acting here is just truly fantastic from everyone around, and I do really think this is one of the best acting ensembles on TV. Everyone just really kills it here. Now, in terms of the directing and the writing, I know I'm going to be reiterating a lot of things I said in Season 1, but it really is true. Everything that worked in Season 1 still works like gangbusters here. I mean, the comedy is amped up to another level. I mean, there are so many hilarious moments on this show, whether it's little gags here and there, like Rhonda not being able to sing, yet Kate Nash has this beautiful voice and she is a trained singer, or a lot of the stuff going on with the Carmen character. She has some really great lines. Bash has some fantastic lines this season. And the show this season is really not afraid to get a little bit darker. There's a lot of stuff in this season where reality really does start to set in. A lot of characters do have to face a lot of hard decisions, and I really did love getting into that. And I think the directing, like I said, is just very spot on there. It's the perfect example of finding a way to retaining everything that the first season did, but also trying to add this newer, sort of more darker element to it that I think actually worked really well. In terms of the writing, this season still is fantastic when it comes to the writing. What I really loved about this season overall is that even though Ruth and Debbie do have a lot to do this season, it's actually much more of an ensemble show. I mean, sure, they still do have something to do every episode, but there are whole episodes that go by where they are not the vocal point of that episode. And I think it was honestly a really good decision, considering the cast is a lot bigger. Now we have a lot more time to flesh out some of the secondary characters, and I really did love getting into that, who these characters are. We did know in Season 1, but this season we really do get more insight on who they are, in and outside of the ring, what they're really going through in their personal lives, how they, how their reputation is amongst people, and I think they did that very well, particularly with the character of the, Tammy, or the welfare queen. We have this great episode where her son is going to college, and we realize that she's kind of doing this to pay off, like, his student loans or whatever, and we realize that she doesn't really need this show all that much for that very reason, and obviously, this is something that he is a bit appalled by when he realizes how offensive the character kind of is, but it's something that we realize that she really does love to do. She's really embraced her identity as this character, and seeing her have to, deal with that, I thought was a really great story and really got me to care more for this character. And there's a lot of storylines like that this season where you just get a lot more insight into who these people really are, besides just the Ruth, the Debbie, the Justine, and the Sam, because they definitely are the four, lead characters this season. But the show does get a lot more into some of the more secondary characters, and I think they did a very good job with that overall here. That being said, that doesn't mean that Ruth and Debbie are at all shortchanged, because there is a lot of stuff going on with them here. Like I said, as we know last season, Ruth wanted to try to make amends with Debbie, but Debbie was not having it. She said that she wasn't there yet, and she's a lot colder now. She's a producer of the show, so she's making a lot of decisions, and a lot of them are not going in Ruth's favor. Ruth is often finding herself sort of outnumbered, and sort of like the, she's very much not really an outsider, but she's always kind of finding herself on the wrong side of things. She's always feels like she is lesser than Debbie. Debbie continues to walk all over her, and you really, while last season it was kind of justify what Ruth was doing, this season, no. You are definitely against Debbie here, and I do like the way the show does do that. They don't try to tell you that Debbie is in the right for doing this. You can understand where Debbie is coming from, but she really does take things very far this season, much farther than she needs to, and I really loved getting into that conflict overall. A lot of shows would take that into some really crazy territory, but this show really doesn't do that. It does go into some really violent places that I was not expecting at all, particularly in the 6th episode of the season. Holy shit, the way things ended there. But what I did like about the season is that they do know when to wrap things up. Even though we do have this tension between Ruth and Debbie, it can't last forever. And I will tell you right now, there is a endpoint for that this season. And I was very happy with that. I'm not going to tell you the way it does end, but this is the end of the Ruth and Debbie tension going on throughout the season. And I'm glad they did wrap that up. I think if they would have gone any further with it, it would have just gone redundant. And I am glad that things did come to an end regarding that plotline. I think they did a very good job with that overall, and like I said, I really loved getting into their story. Again, while there is a lot going on with the secondary characters, that still is very much the main focus, and I think they did a very good job with that. It felt very focused in that way. But something else this season does a very good job with is getting more into the sort of consequences of these women being in Glow. Because, like I said, this season a lot of the women have really embraced their alter egos. The welfare queen, Ruth has really gotten in touch with Zoya, Debbie with Liberty Bell, a lot of different things like that. But on the other hand, there's a lot of complications they're dealing with. The network especially is being very hard on them. They're moving them to a really difficult time slot when almost no one is up at that time, and there's a lot of complications where people are wondering, is this really going to last that long? But unlike last season where they were just doing this because they wanted to have fun and, maybe get their name out there, this really has become something that they love to do. This really has become sort of their life, and I really loved seeing that. The transformation, sure, it's only over 10 episodes, but it does make a lot of sense as to why they're starting to become a little bit more in tune with what they're doing, and I actually really did love getting into, seeing how passionate they really were about all this, and especially seeing Debbie, how hard she really is fighting to keep this show afloat. Her and Sam are working just incredulously to do that. Ruth as well, but Ruth and Sam are very much on opposite ends this season, and that's something else that I very much did like. Everyone seems to have their own way of trying to keep this show relevant and trying to turn things around, and some of the results are absolutely ridiculous, but again, similar to season 1, the show recognizes how ridiculous it is. It doesn't try to make it seem like it doesn't try to do it in any sort of sincere way, and I think they did that very well here. And again, I loved getting into just the mechanics of how Glow really worked and the problems that really did awry there. Sure, the show does seem like a really great idea at first, but there definitely are going to be some obstacles along the way, and I really did love the way we got into that this season. However, not all of the writing is perfect here. I do think that there were some things that the show could have done a lot better. A lot of people are saying the season is better than season 1, and while I do think it is pretty much on par with the first season, I wouldn't necessarily say it's better. There still are a few things that the show, it does hold it back a bit for me, particularly with the Justine and Sam storyline. While we do get some stuff with this story in the back half of the season, it takes a while for them to really start to shed light on what's going on here. Sure, we do see Sam being a lot more, like I said, caring and sympathetic towards these women, but we don't really get to see a lot of the bonding between Justine and Sam. We will often see, we will sometimes see a scene where, you know, she wants to go out with Billy and he's not as okay with that as he would have been in the first season, but I just felt we could have gotten a little bit more into that relationship overall, and we really only get one episode to focus on it, and I wish they would have given us a little bit more time. That was easily one of my favorite plot reveals of season 1, and while I do think it was satisfying, I just needed a little bit more, and I just felt we really didn't get it. Also, there are some side characters that are introduced this season that they do go places, but I just did not feel they went into a place that was completely satisfying. It still was very, I liked the way things ended, but I just felt we could have gotten a little bit more with them because the show is trying to juggle a lot of characters. Some of them do end up feeling a little bit shortchanged, not a lot, but just a little bit shortchanged in that regard, and I think they could have maybe fleshed them out just a little bit more. There are some storylines that I do think are a bit rushed, but for the most part, the show does a very good job when it comes to the character drama, the struggles that they do endure, and like I said, especially this season, really getting into the problems of Glow and what being on this show really does entail and sort of the hurdles that they have to go through. You know, there's a lot of hoops that they really do have to jump through, and I think they do a very good job with that this season. But I will also say the show does feel a lot more confident in that it's not afraid, like I said, to get into some really dark stuff. Some stuff is shockingly relevant this season. There is a sort of Me Too-esque storyline going on, but it doesn't take up like half of the season. So if you were worried about that, it really only is dealt with in like 2 episodes, and then they don't really bring it up again, which I was happy about. You know, I think it could have taken up like most of the season, but that's not what this show is trying to do. It's not trying to shed a light on all these social issues. It's just showing things that probably could and did happen to these women, and they do a very good job with that. But like I said, beyond that, the show isn't afraid to go into some truly wacky directions, particularly in episode 8, which for me is the strongest episode of this entire show. And why, you may ask? Well, unlike the rest of the show, this episode is basically a straightforward episode of Glow. And not Glow as in the show we're watching right now. I'm talking about the original Glow TV show, like the show that this show is based around. And it was a very ballsy decision in that way, but it really does work. Episode 7, without spoiling anything, is very emotional. There's a lot of sadness and a lot of tragedy that goes on within that episode, and there's a lot to really process after that episode. So I feel like this made a lot of sense in a way to be just a nice palate cleanser and to be a nice sign of levity, but they really do go all out and take as many liberties as they possibly can with this, with this particular episode. I mean, they have everything down to a science, from the over-the-top ridiculous laugh track to all of the crazy storylines that are going on with these characters, which, I mean, they're insane. Just what's going on with the Britannica storyline in particular is ridiculous, and just thinking that this was something that people used to watch and people used to, actually really enjoy, it just shows how silly this entire thing really was, but it also did show what it was really trying to do, and, you really do see how these women have evolved from portraying these characters, and I think they did a very good job with that. But there's a lot of just great gags that I could just talk about this one episode. This one episode alone has so many things to talk about. You can talk about how, even though Justine is in the show, there are times where she seems a bit awkward. She seems like she doesn't really want to be there at points, and it works very well in that sense because Justine is a teenager, and as we know, she didn't do this show because she wanted to be a star on Glow. She did it to get closer to Sam, and I think they did a very good job with that here. Or how we see sometimes that some of the characters will be a bit out of character at points, and they'll start, you know, laughing at things, and I think they did a very good job with that. Or we'll see, you know, how great Debbie is as Liberty Bell and what Liberty Bell has really done for her, and how Liberty Bell has really become the hero of the show and Zoya is the villain. And there's a lot of great genius stuff there. There's this parody song that I have been listening to constantly. It's like a tribute of, it's supposed to be a parody like We Are the World, and it was so spot on. They had everything down pat there. That episode alone is enough of a reason to watch the show. I truly do think it might possibly be the best episode I have seen from this show, and mainly just because of how much it went against the grain, how much it did something different. It's one of those things that they really only could have done this season, and I am really glad that they did, because did they need to do it? Not necessarily, but it's one of those things that I wish they did, and I'm very happy that they did go there, and I think it really did pay off in the end very well. The cinematography in the show still is fantastic. They capture the 80s period very well here, but also scenes in the ring are kind of intensified this season. A lot of them are very well done, particularly in, like I said, that 80s, you know, that 8th episode I just mentioned. The cinematography in there is truly great. They have the black bars and everything. It looks like something you'd watch in that era. It looks like it's ripped right out of the 80s, and they did a great job with that. The score is still fantastic. I really do enjoy it a lot, and the pacing of the season, like I said, while there were some things that I think could have been a little bit more fleshed out, for the most part, I thought the season was very well paced, and especially for the finale, which was over 40 minutes long, mind you, the longest episode of this show yet. Nothing really ever dragged for me. I never really was bored with what was going on this season, and I think they still did a very good job, that they were able to maintain that sense of, you know, they were able to maintain that momentum that the first season had, and I think they did a fantastic job with that. But now I really do want to get into spoilers for this season, because a lot actually does go down in this finale that I really do want to talk about, so let's just get into it. I'm going to start from the most inessential thing to the most essential. First of all, I do want to talk about everything going on with Ruth and, you know, the whole thing going on with Ruth and Sam. I was really worried at first that they were going to try to make some sort of love triangle between Ruth, Sam, and this new guy that she's dating, but I was happy to see that they didn't end up going in that direction. You know, Sam basically realized that she does really care about him, and I want to see Ruth and Sam have a platonic dynamic. I don't want to see these two, you know, hooking up. I don't really want to see that happen. I feel like it'd be regression for Sam as well, because Sam is really, like I said, starting to see these girls as not just, you know, not just ladies that are attractive and are going to make good ratings, but he's actually seeing them as real people, and that is never more evident than in that scene with those, you know, when he's in that scene at that strip club, and those two women who I can't think of their names right now for the life of me, you know, they're about to strip, and he's actually not wanting to see it. Why? Because he's looking at more from a Arthi. There we go, Arthi, and we have Arthi, and we also have that's not Mallory. That's not her name. But Arthi is one of them, and you know, basically in that Arthi and Yo-Yo. There we go. Those are the two. So basically, you know, Arthi and Yo-Yo, these two girls, you know, they're stripping and everything, and I really love that scene where Sam said, like, don't take anything off until I leave. Like, it just shows that he's becoming more this parental figure, and a lot more, like I said, caring towards these girls, and just that one little line just kind of shows the shift that he's really undergone, and I thought it really did work very well this season. I did feel bad that he had to lose Justine, but as we know, you know, her mom was relentless. She really wanted Justine back, and she was trying to make up for what, you know, the wrongs and things like that. Her and Justine weren't really able to have that great relationship anymore, and I like the way she is trying to improve that, and I'm hoping we do see her again next season, you know, regardless of wherever we're going next season, because we'll get to that in a little bit, but I really do hope we do see Justine, because I do like that character a lot, and I do still think there's a lot more that they can explore, and I'm interested in seeing really where that is going to go overall. But then, of course, we have to get to the main stuff in this episode, which actually dealt with Bash. Bash was a huge character in this episode, and I'm hoping that means he'll be a main character next season, because I actually really loved where he ended up going here. You know, obviously, he was crushed over Florian's death. You know, we knew that this was his best friend, and it's one of those things where, like, we knew that AIDS was around in the 80s, but they didn't really discuss it on the show, and I think it's that much more powerful when Bash discovers that, holy shit, Florian actually did die of AIDS. Like, he was always having that hope that he'd be okay, but no, you know, we knew eventually that that was going to take him, and I'm glad that the show didn't try to make a big deal out of it, because, again, it's that much more shocking, and those are the kinds of things where I said the show isn't afraid to go into some darker territory, and seeing Bash deal with this, I thought was very well done. That being said, though, I was waiting for the scene where he does explain to Sam or someone what's actually going on, but it did not happen. However, everything with Rhonda really did make up for that, because as we know, Rhonda is basically forced to get married or she's going to be deported because of her not being, I believe it was because she wasn't a legal American citizen. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that was what was going on there. And she's supposed to be getting married and everything, but Bash decides to marry her, and I do think he's genuine, where he actually does want to, you know, be with her and everything, because we could see there was some sort of attraction going on there. You know, he was living at her house and things like that, so I'm interested in seeing really where that's going to go. I'm really hoping that things turn out well for Rhonda and Bash, but we'll have to see where that does end up going in the end. But also very interested to see, of course, where things go in the very end this episode, where it seems like all hope is lost. You know, KDTV comes in, tells them that, you know, even though the show went really well, which it goes extremely well, to the point where Ruth ends up coming back on top, and Zoya really is able to regain that, you know, that confidence and things like that, and finally, you know, be able to get back in the ring and things like that, which I really love seeing. The KDTV is like, well, we own the characters, so unfortunately we're not going to be able to move you to another network, but that doesn't mean they can't continue Glow, because we do have another option where basically we see that Glenn reveals that, even though Glow is property of, well, not Glenn, Ray is actually the owner of that strip club chain that, you know, that Yolanda and Arthi work at, and basically he wants Glow to do shows in Las Vegas. It's going to be just like what they do, but it's going to be a full show. There's not going to be as many limitations, so basically they are going to continue Glow, but it is going to be in Las Vegas, which means the show is basically completely new territory now. It's no longer going with what actually end up happening, because from what I heard, Glow actually started in Las Vegas. Like, that was the original destination for where Glow was, you know, taped and everything. That's where you could watch Glow on TV, as it was recorded, you know, in Vegas. So it's not like Glow is any stranger to it. It's just this show is doing something really different, and we end the season with everyone kind of hopeful going to Vegas, but we see Ruth is a little bit uneasy about it. You know, Sam tells her that she's going to hate it, and she has this graduate sort of moment where she isn't sure how it's really going to go, and that's really how we end things overall. So, yeah, there's a lot of places that this show can really go from here in terms of Las Vegas. I'm very excited to see where everything does go. I love, the thing I love about this is that the whole cast is still together. The whole cast is going back to Las Vegas, minus Justine. Obviously, Justine is now back in high school, but I am hoping they get a way to get her back, because I do really love that relation between her and Sam. I do definitely want to see more of that. But in terms of Las Vegas, there's so many places they can go with this. There's so much stuff they can explore. And again, the show is really going off book now because of the fact that Glow started in Las Vegas. Now we can really see where they're really going to go from there. It's very much uncharted territory in that regard, and I'm very interested in seeing really where the show does end up going. There's a lot of places, you know, there's a lot of things that really can happen. Is Rhonda and Bash's romance really legit? Is it really going to survive? Is he trying to cover up for something? Is he going to finally open up on what happened to Florian? Because that's obviously why he was being such a dick behind the scenes and things like that. You know, we do see that, you know, as far as Ruth and the new guy that she's with, is their relationship really going to survive? Are Ruth and Debbie on good terms now? I mean, we see that Debbie is trying to make at least an effort to be a little bit nicer to her, but she still does one-up her a lot. She still does, you know, find a way to almost always make Ruth kind of feel shitty and always make her feel like she's doing the wrong thing. But I did like the fact that they are trying to turn things around there, but we'll have to see if that really does continue to stay healthy, if they're able to maintain a good friendship there. Overall, there's a lot of places this show can really go. There's a lot of things I'm interested in seeing how they really do explore overall. Glow Season 2 is, I think, a really great season. It has, like I said, a lot more characterization than the first one. It dives a lot more into some of the secondary characters, like Bash and like Rhonda and things like that. There's a lot of places the show can go from here. It takes everything we love about Season 1 and kind of expands on it in a really unpredictable way that I really wasn't expecting overall. There's a lot of emotional moments. There's a lot of really cathartic moments this season. A lot of satisfying things as well. And like I said, that 8th episode alone is enough a reason to watch the show. It's bigger and ballsier than I think it was in the first season. I don't think it's quite as good as the first season, but I do think that it's almost there. It's almost on par with the first season overall. It's really just those few things that do bog it down, but for the most part, this is still a fantastic season of television and still one of the best Netflix shows out there. And because that, I am definitely going to give Glow Season 2 overall an A-. So like I said, guys, that's it for my review of the season of Glow. Let me know what you guys saw this season overall. Left your thoughts on it. Which season do you like more, Seasons 2 or 1? Where do you think the show is really going to go from here? There's a lot of things they can really do in Season 3 that I'm very interested in seeing them explore. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in my next video, which I promise, now that I reviewed Glow, that top 5 summer shows video will very much be coming out very soon. Definitely look forward to that. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.